Caves are breathtaking, yet unforgiving. One mistake can turn adventure into nightmare, with crushing pressure, suffocating darkness, and injuries to the body's most fragile parts, the neck and spine. Today's journey explores 8 harrowing expeditions where explorers were twisted, trapped, or immobilized deep underground. These aren't simple tales of being lost, but chilling encounters with death itself. Viewer discretion advised. Pepper Sauce Cave, Arizona, 2004. In June 2004, Dan Garrison wanted to give his 11-year-old son, Justin, a birthday memory by exploring Arizona's Pepper Sauce Cave. The twisting limestone maze seemed like the perfect adventure, but 2 small mistakes turned it into a nightmare. Dan hadn't packed extra batteries, and no one outside knew where they were. At first, the cool cave felt like relief from the brutal summer heat. The pair crawled through tight chambers, scraped against jagged rocks, and eventually reached a spot known as the Book Room, proudly signing their names in the logbook. But when it was time to leave, the passages betrayed them. What had once felt familiar now twisted into a disorienting maze. Every tunnel looked identical, every chamber another trap. Hours passed as cold seeped into their bodies. The cave held steady at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and with only thin jackets, both father and son began to shiver. Dan tried to hide his worry, rationing their last water and giving most to Justin. His flashlight beam grew weaker with every step. Then came Justin's idea. Listen for dripping water. Following the faint sound, they stumbled upon the same rope they had climbed the day before. Relief surged as they retraced their path. After nearly 24 grueling hours underground, daylight finally greeted them, a reminder of just how narrowly they had escaped death. Qualit Cave, Mexico, 2004. In March of 2004, another story unfolded deep beneath Mexico. This time it wasn't amateurs. It was a team of seasoned cavers, men trained through years of service in the British Armed Forces, operating under the Combined Services Caving Association. Their mission was routine: descend into Qualit Cave, establish themselves at Camp 1 about a kilometer inside, complete survey work, and return. The problem was water. Qualit was notorious for sudden floods, and while the team thought Camp 1 would be safe, heavy rains on March 17th changed everything. By the time rescuers above attempted to reach them, the entrance was blocked by a flooded sump, an underground pool that swelled into a deadly barrier. At first, the group inside handled it with soldierly calm. They had food, radios, and supplies. But when the days dragged into a week, calm gave way to suffocating dread. The chamber grew damp and heavy. Clothes clung to skin. Every breath filled with the stench of sweat and mud, and sleep came in shallow bursts. By March 23rd, the team had been underground for over a week, rationing their dwindling food while oxygen grew thin. Radio updates promised help, but time was slipping away. Outside, British cave divers Rick Stanton and Jason Mallinson finally arrived, ready to attempt a dangerous rescue. One misstep in the water-filled tunnels could mean instant death. On March 25th, they began. Guiding each trapped man through the submerged passage was grueling, with visibility near zero. After 9 painful hours, every caver emerged into the light. Relief swept through the team, but it didn't last. Almost immediately, Mexican authorities accused the men of conducting espionage, claiming their presence in the caves with specialized equipment was suspicious. After surviving suffocating dampness, physical exhaustion, and the crushing weight of being trapped underground, they were suddenly detainees in a political storm. The emotional toll of Qualit was as devastating as the physical one, reminding everyone that survival sometimes comes with a price that lingers long after the cave lets you go. Devil's Den Cave, Ozarks, 2005. Some caves punish with cold, others with flooding. Devil's Den in the Ozarks punished with stone that squeezed like a vice. In April 2005, a 20-year-old named Richard Hears entered the cave with 12 children between the ages of 8 and 12. He had explored before and thought he knew what awaited him. Confidence, however, can be fatal underground. The children wriggled through tight tunnels with ease. Their small frames allowed them to slip past stone cracks that forced Richard to twist and force himself through. When they reached a vertical fissure barely 10 inches wide, Richard made a decision that nearly cost him everything. He sent the children through first, planning to follow after. But when it was his turn, his chest pressed against one side and his back against the other. He sucked in his breath and tried again, but halfway up, he became wedged. The cave walls clamped around him, locking his hips in place. Panic shot through him as each attempt to move made it worse. Behind him, 12 children were now cut off from safety. Their laughter turned to cries. Some froze in panic. Others pressed close, staring at the man who had promised to guide them, now helpless in stone. Time became the enemy. As minutes turned to hours, circulation in Richard's legs began failing. His chest compressed, and every shallow breath came with a stabbing ache. Rescue crews eventually arrived, trying hammers and chisels, each strike vibrating through the stone and into Richard's body. Every vibration risked collapse. Finally, specialized rescuers rigged webbing under his arms, cutting away his jeans to reduce bulk, and lifted him just enough to free his body. The agony that followed was unforgettable. As blood surged back into his compressed muscles, it felt like knives stabbing into his skin. Richard survived, but his body bore the marks of compression syndrome. For the 12 children who watched, the memory of seeing their guide crushed and gasping in that narrow crack would never leave them. Gage Caverns, New York, 2001. On an October morning in 2001, 5 friends set out to explore Gage Caverns in upstate New York. Among them was a graduate student named Shio Kudo. Small and curious, she noticed a narrow horizontal crack branching off from the amphitheater chamber. It looked just wide enough to explore. Her decision to slip inside nearly killed her. At first, it seemed manageable, but then the crack bent at a sharp 90-degree angle. Her upper body twisted one way while her legs remained stretched behind her. The limestone closed in, pressing her ribs and torso until she couldn't breathe properly. She was stuck. Her friends tried everything, pulling gently, shifting her arms, guiding her movements, but the rock held fast. Time dragged on, and the cave's steady 52-degree chill began stealing her body heat. She shivered uncontrollably as numbness crept into her arms and side. Rescuers finally arrived and tried lubricants, rocking her gently, but nothing worked. Hours passed, and her breaths grew more shallow. Only when veteran cavers carefully chipped away at the limestone around her ribs did she finally slip free. By the time she emerged, 9 hours had passed. Her ribs were badly bruised, her nerves temporarily damaged, and her spirit forever scarred by the crushing embrace of the stone. Bear Hollow Rift, 2006. November 25, 2006, 8 cavers entered Bear Hollow Rift, a brutal cave of vertical pits and rib-crushing passages. Among them was Jay Jordan. The deeper they went, the more drained the group became. At the bottom, 4 chose to turn back. Jordan pressed on. That decision nearly ended his life. Minutes turned to hours. His strength drained away. Finally, his grip slipped, and he slid back down the shaft, hitting bottom in exhaustion. Miraculously, he wasn't broken, but he was done. His friends rushed to help, but the cave demanded more. Rescuers drilled into the rock horn that had trapped him, chipping it away. At last, Jordan pulled himself free. After more than 20 hours of neck-straining struggle, he was finally led to the surface, hollow-eyed and shivering. Cheve Cave, Mexico. Deep in Mexico's Oaxaca mountains lies Cheve Cave, one of the world's most dangerous vertical labyrinths. In 1991, a team of elite American cavers descended with ambition. Among them was Chris Jorger. The descent involved a complex system of ropes and anchors, each requiring flawless execution. But one mistake in this system can unleash disaster. As Chris descended a tricky section, his rappel rack was not properly weighted. In the instant he leaned forward, his carabiner gate snapped open. There was no warning, no second chance. He fell in a sudden, silent plunge. The impact left his body twisted, his leg bent unnaturally, and his head pinned against shallow water. His neck had suffered fatal trauma. Rescuers tried CPR, but it was hopeless. Nickajack Cave, Tennessee, 1992. Nickajack Cave in Tennessee carries a dark reputation. In 1992, David, a 31-year-old adventurer, ignored warnings and dove illegally into its underwater passages, lured by tales of giant catfish. Deep inside, he realized his air was running low. Panic set in when he swam into a rock ceiling with no exit. His dive fins stirred up silt, blinding him in zero visibility. Into Mache Cave, Peru, 2014. Finally, the story of Cecilio Lopez Terrero, a man considered one of Spain's most skilled cavers. In September 2014, while leading an expedition in Peru's Into Mache Cave, he fell 15 feet. The impact shattered his ribs and damaged his spine, leaving him immobile. His teammates alerted authorities, but the cave's remoteness made rescue nearly impossible. Days turned into weeks as international teams assembled pulley systems and stretcher rigs. Rain, altitude, and darkness tested them. Yet they also show something else: the lengths to which rescuers, friends, and fellow explorers will go to save another life. Sacrifice, teamwork, and determination often mean the difference between survival and tragedy. Caves will always hold mystery, beauty, and danger. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share this with others who love powerful survival stories. And don't forget to join us again for more incredible explorations into the world's most dangerous and unforgettable adventures.